In this video, we're going to go over the world building prompts, and our primary prompt is going to be the world building wizard. So we have two options here. The first is if you've already got a codex or snippet that's full of world building information that you've been brainstorming, you can select it and then it will use that as the basis, or you can do a guided Q&A where it's like you're starting from scratch. So in this case, we'll do the guided Q&A. And you can see we got choices of geography, life form and species, society and culture, which then has a number of subtopics underneath it, religion and philosophy, history and lore, and language. I'm going to select geography, and I've actually switched over to a different project. So I've got a novella I've been working on that takes place in a magical land that doesn't exist. So perfect opportunity to do some world building. I think I'm going to stay with Mistral. Grok is still my favorite, but oh, it is so wordy. If we type usage, so type begin like most prompts to get it started, but the big thing here is, and I mentioned in the 7 update, is the new command quiz me. So what it's going to do is it's going to generate 4 questions about geography related to world building my new world, and if I type quiz me, it will ask 4 more questions, and so on until I get tired of talking about geography. And then I'll type proceed to tell it to stop and move on. And while we're here, let's show off the troubleshoot command. So although troubleshoot was designed to help me troubleshoot issues with a prompt and figure out if I was giving it more information than it was actually using, and that therefore I could take it out, if it doesn't have anything to tell me, then in this case it's talking about geography. So redundancy. Some questions in the Spark sections may overlap. Ambiguity, hydrography. So again, it's unexpected side effect or benefit of this is that it will provide some additional help with the task you're working on. Here we go. The instruction: ask the author to clarify your analysis before. Could be more explicit about what clarification is needed. Wow. So yeah, so here's actually useful information for improving the prompt. This is a perfect one. Talk about vague. Various phases of writing, quite broad, but anyway, we will tell it to begin. Dominant climate, temperate. So in this case, it's asking follow-up questions. But let's say I wasn't interested in those follow-up questions. I want new questions about the geography. Nope, it's going to do follow-up questions anyway. Literally the same questions I tried to ask earlier. There we go. So continue. Triggered it to ask some different questions. But for now, we'll just tell it to proceed with what I've already told it, just so we can get a report and move on to some of the other topics. So have it create a fact file, which then we would save to a snippet. And then from there, cut the snippet up into codex entries if we need them. Instead, let's show off society and culture. So society and culture has a number of things. Sex, so basically, yeah, reproduction. Body coverings, that's clothing, fur, feathers, scales, and shells. Shells are exoskeletons. Yeah, basically, if it's anything that can protect your body or adorn your body, that's under body covering. Architecture. Social structures are mostly about culture and anything related to that, or any type of special organizations. Government, simple enough. Politics, the actual, is it a monarchy? Is it a democracy? What type of government is it? Some stuff about military, law enforcement. Labor and commerce covers not just labor and not just commerce, but anything to do with trade, anything to do with money, anything to do with the criminal underground, black markets. And then food, medicine, drugs is, what do the people eat? What kind of medicines do they have? What kind of, healthcare system do they have? And then drugs could be, from illicit to medicinal. Let's try labor and commerce, since this story does deal with some labor and commerce stuff. That's actually a great question. Magic and labor. How does the existence of magic in your world alter traditional labor roles in industries? Are there magical professions? Economic enterprises? Scarcity and control? The other thing is, also tell it, and usually it's the fifth question, a rule-breaking scenario. So, what happens when somebody in this fictional society doesn't follow the rules? Or what happens if you have a government that collapses? The king dies unexpectedly and doesn't have an heir, or there's a coup. So things of that nature. So again, it's going to ask follow-up questions so that we can dig deeper into, the thing you're working on. And again, if you type continue, that should at least get Mistral to stop asking questions. Or stop asking follow-up questions and ask them some new ones. And we can try the quiz me again, and that should replace this set of questions with new ones. Government control, economic freedom. But again, we'll just do a proceed, and it'll generate fact files for what information we provided already. But we'll keep asking you questions and guiding you into, developing a richer, more detailed world. So the questions are actually included inside the prompt itself. So if there was something about geography, say you had, you work in a specific genre, or you're working on a series that's in a specific, sci-fi universe or something like that, You can go in here and manually, add, delete, change, whatever, what kind of facts and guidance it draws on, the pre-formatted questions, and then terminology. Because as you can see here, it's randomly choose from guidance, information, questions, and terminology in Sparks. That's these XML tags. To generate 4 world building design questions. Wait for answers, do not anticipate a response. Terminology. You can edit it. Or, because it is an option, under mode, let's codec snippet. And I've created some professional roles that you can choose from, or there is a, you can say act as a hairdresser if you had something you wanted to do related to hairdressing. And then you can pull in a snippet or pull in a codex that has the information you want to use to then do a Q&A session. There's a lot to explore in that world building wizard, but I'm going to move on to the next prompt. Magic and tech. And in this case, we're back to the other story, so we're going to say science fiction. Let's give Grok a chance. So we can choose magic systems, tech systems, set dressing, and design fiction. In this case, we don't have magic systems. We're more hard SF, so we'll go with tech systems. And I wanted to keep magic and tech systems as separate prompts because, since those are the core features of fantasy and science fiction novels, there's a lot of development that can probably be done to this prompt, and a lot of customization. They can be developed separately. So what it's done here is it's generated 5 tech systems, technical things that I can consider adding to the story. Adaptive biosuit with environmental symbiosis. That sounds like something that they might be able to develop in the 2030s when you've got 2 of the world's smartest people going to Mars. Fractal AI navigator. Okay. Resonant energy harvest. Let's pick fantasy this time, and we'll give 04 Mini a chance. Set dressing, so as it explains, creates the background objects that make a world feel lived in. So this is, your magic and tech systems are going to be the primary, your MacGuffins, or, whatever drives a plot forward. And set dressing is more of the things that characters are going to interact with that, in a way, throw away, but it makes you realize that, this world is lived in. And so that's what set dressing is. Anything that adds to the scene to, again, just hint that, there is a wider world out there. like that. And as it mentions here in the reminders, if it's something big enough, you want to make a codex entry for it, but it may just be something that's mentioned in passing, and then you can just put it in your glossary of story terms. Like maybe they're talking about this thing that is rumored to exist, you know, the wand of great healing or whatever, and everybody talks about it, but nobody's ever seen it. They're not even sure it's real. And this is why we use AI, because it's come up with, you know, it's given it a name, said it's 230 years old, where it comes from, the Sanctum of Lysandria. And again, these are things that we want to edit, because wouldn't be surprised if Lysandria is another AI-ism that, you know, people who write a lot of fancy say, oh yes, every time you turn around there's something from Lysandria. But, you know, significant amount of information that we can use to edit and revise into something to put into our world. Now the last thing it does is, yeah, associated words and phrases. Ooh, the Blood Grail. Althea's hand, bleed bound. But yeah, so to make the object look and feel more real is, you know, if there's associated terms around it, you know, then it doesn't look like it's just a one-off that the author threw in there. Terminology, there's culture around it, there's fables and legends and lore kind of stuff. But we'll go ahead and save it as a snippet just in case. Vitae Chalice. Not that we need it for this story, but we're going to actually stay in this chat session and jump right into the next and final prompt, design fiction. Okay, well, let's explore the world around this thing. So there's an additional drop-down menu we need to fill in. So go into Tweak and Generate, and it says that is the design item, and that's the lore or object codex entry for the item. Now when I click on here, I get some lore stuff, but not an object. And since we want to do the chalice, this is why we save snippets. We'll create an object item. Actually meant to put that into details. All right, so now we've got that as part of the glossary. Let's call it an artifact. All right. How's that? So here we can see this getting into questions about, well, you can't just make this stuff up out of thin air. There has to have been a precursor to it. There has to be an explanation for, although in the movies they do it all the time, but we're writing a novel, and readers expect to have more than just a, hand-wavium excuse for how this thing works. So that's why it's really digging in deep with questions about, where did it come from? What are the ramifications of something that can just magically, heal people of cancer or whatever life-threatening illness they might have? There you go. So I am going to use hand-wavium. That's a good way to wallpaper over. People used to know how to do this, but they were banned, executed. Nobody knows how to do it anymore. So now that we've given it just the barest of information, it is, because that's what the AI is there for, created this whole background to help, again, flesh out this object so that it feels more like something that actually could exist in this world. And again, it's not just a MacGuffin that you as the author have pulled out of thin air to solve a plot issue. So even though I haven't provided the answers that it wanted, it still went ahead and generated some of that stuff, and we're just going to keep pushing it to get to the final report. So yeah, you can see this prompt really digs into the background and the backstory of whatever object is you're creating. But the one thing I wanted to do is show, okay, well, how do different people in your society view this thing? And so we've got 3 different perspectives. So you've got the skeptic, who's somebody who doesn't believe in what the object is, or they think it's a waste of time. So kind of their viewpoint on it. The adapter, and that's generally in society, old people, we don't like this stuff. In my day, we didn't need all this, and then you have the middle generation who, at some point has learned to use it in their daily life, and then of course there's the younger generation who doesn't know a world without the device or the MacGuffin, your MacGuffin. And so now it's gone into all the ways you can use it in your story, story Bible components. And then, here it's created the last thing it does is creates a little short story around the object so you can kind of see how it's used in your fictional world with those 3 different, your skeptic, your adopter, and your, younger generation who can't live without it. And then, this last thing here, export your novel crafter project. So at this point we've finished all of our brainstorming, character building, world building, and we're ready to move on to actually creating the plot outlines, the scenes, and scene beats. So it's a good idea to export your novel crafter project so it's somewhere not on your computer, not in the cloud. Backup, backup, backup. You can never have enough backups of something that you can't recreate easily. But at this point, we're going to wrap up this video because it is time to move on to creating your plot outlines. If you have any questions, I highly recommend joining the Novel Crafter Discord. Thanks for watching and keep writing. Future readers are waiting for your stories.